Welcome back to For Perspective. I'm Bill. This is the first episode of Season 2. That's right, we are back. We'll see how this goes for Season 2. I think I got 12 episodes plus a bonus episode for Season 1. And today we're going to talk about a little bit of tech news, and then I'll just give you some updates on some of the stuff that's been going on behind the scenes here and the tech that I've been using. So first story that I'm going to cover is says big tech's AI spending hits $344 billion in 2025. And why this matters to all of us, I guess, is that companies are still spending like mad on AI. AI is still everywhere. It's fueling the news cycle. But it's also in a weird place where sometimes I go on and, I'm in ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Claude, and I type something in and I just get a response and I'm kind of like, why am I even using this in the first place? And then I go and I, think about, I should have just done this the old-fashioned way and did it myself. Other times I go in there and I get these responses that just blow me away, especially when using the deep research feature. Finding all of these different articles, especially peer-reviewed articles for health stuff recently, has been very beneficial. But, I flip-flop back and forth between, all right, I'm canceling ChatGPT, and then like 7 days later, it just blows me away with some deep research report. And I'm like, why would I ever cancel this, sort of thing. For Gemini, I'm still on the plan that's $10 a month through Verizon. Gets me the 2 terabytes Google Cloud storage as well. So, from that perspective, I'm not canceling Gemini. But a lot of the times, I had found that Gemini follows instructions better, custom instructions in different projects. They call them gems better. Nowadays, it's a little bit easier to go back and forth with ChatGPT, I think, in these projects to get the output that you're looking for. And then as you go back and forth, you can then restart in a new chat with all of that information in a single prompt. So, I don't know. It's still a toss-up as to what models are the best. I think there's models that perform better than others at certain tasks. And depending on the day and depending on the prompt, you might get a better response out of one model versus the other. On the same AI front, there was a Bloomberg report from Mark Gurman that came out about how Apple is doing with AI. Mac Rumors wrote an article based on that that's titled, "Tim Cook Defends Apple's AI Delay." And the quote is, "We've rarely been first." And so, wow, that's so true. Everybody has given Apple so much crap over the years for all of the new technologies that it seemed like Android had adopted first and put into phones, and Apple would kind of wait, see how they could best implement the thing, and then, launch it years later saying, we've came up with this great new technology. It's like, well, come on, guys, it's not really new, but marketing department in full force there at Apple. So why I thought this was interesting is, Apple Intelligence has still been a flop for the most part. I really wish Apple would just be more transparent with the roadmap for Apple Intelligence, what they're working on behind the scenes. Are they going to make their assistant any better? But the picture's starting to take a little bit more shape. So as they announced all of the operating system upgrades at WWDC, all now with the 26 moniker, there's some welcome changes to Apple Intelligence. Now, I'm only running the public beta on my iPad, but even in things like Apple Shortcuts, you get the choice now with Apple Intelligence to use whatever model you want. So you can use an on-device model, a cloud model, or you can choose to send it to ChatGPT. I hope they continue to expand that and add different AI providers and add more features specifically within Shortcuts in order to, tag on to maybe a chat that's already going in ChatGPT and so on and so forth. But the on-device and the cloud models, so like tapping into the machine learning and the models that Apple has on device, is the unique thing here. I think a lot of people are missing that. All of these other models are continually basically stealing your data, right? You're opting in when you use these models to share your data. Some of them you can say, don't use my prompts to make your model better, but the privacy issues and the data issues for the big companies, OpenAI and Anthropic and even Google, just aren't going away anytime soon. And I think it's important that, Apple has taken this stance over the past, I don't know how long, decades, basically, that they're privacy first. And it seems like AI is no exception. I think on-device is the unique thing here. While everybody else sends your data to the cloud, takes it to make their model better, Apple may be the unique one here out of the players, and that may be their edge at the end of the day when it comes to AI. So yes, they're not first, they're not leading in AI, they're definitely not creating these large language models to the level like an OpenAI or an Anthropic or even Google are. But I do think their implementation is going to be really smart when it does happen and is fully out there in the world. And if they double down on this, this ecosystem is the whole thing that brings people to Apple, right? Your computer works seamlessly with your phone, works seamlessly with your iPad. If they manage to get an AI solution that crosses all three of those devices, is aware of everything that's on there, but isn't sharing your device with, people that you don't want to see, all of that information, that could be huge for them. Now, it's in recent years brought, kind of crappy lawsuits for them on people who are mad that they created this system and are apparently locking, people out of whatever, It's been a little bit of their detriment recently, but it is still the thing that I think sets them apart from all of the other technology options out there on the market today. All right, enough about Apple. One last story, and then we'll get into a few quick updates. So Figma, the design software, was released as a public company. It was an IPO this week. $45 billion, B with a $1 billion valuation on day one. Now, the article reads, public debut was a blockbuster, instantly reaching $45 billion, dominating design workflows globally. So I don't personally use Figma, but I see a lot of people on social media, and I follow some great designers on threads that use Figma and share, how they're using it, how to use it, and how to get better designs using Figma. In the Robinhood app, I would have had access to it. It IPO'd. It said at $33 a share. Not sure if I would have gotten in on that price at all, but I just didn't do any research ahead of time. I skipped the IPO thing in Robinhood and said, historically tech IPOs debut at a price that's way higher than it's actually worth, and they kind of tank for a while and go down, and then they eventually turn it around and work their way back up. I was like, I just don't want to deal with that. Well, what do I know? Figma rocketed upwards on the first day, but we'll see how that lasts. Now that they're public, the employees that had restricted stock units vested now have the ability to sell. Like I said, I haven't done any research, but sometimes that can affect price if employees just all go dump their stock on the same day, sort of thing. Generally, though, I like Figma. I think it's a unique software. It's a unique platform, and now it's kind of taken over this space. It's eaten into Adobe's foothold a little bit. And generally now the fun thing to do is hate on Adobe, even though I still like using Lightroom and Photoshop from time to time. So that's it for the news this week. We'll just do a quick update. I'm sitting in a new studio space. So I moved from the upstairs in my house down to the basement, tried to set everything up. It's a little busier than I want in the background behind me. If you're watching this on video, feel free to give me some suggestions. But for now, it's up and running and working, and we'll see how the audio sounds. I might need to do a little bit more soundproofing here. And as far as the podcast goes, I think I'm going to work on experimenting with formats a little bit more. Still feels like I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm here, I'm doing a podcast, so that's got to be worth something, I think. I do think I'm going to implement a little bit more news stories and try to stay away from the whole rumor mill at this point, but cover a little bit more news on the podcast this season. I had the goal of having some guests on. I just want to get back to doing the podcast and being consistent on it before I worry about, the challenges of bringing guests on. It's going to be a lot more work for me for sure. Now with more limited time. So might get a little bit shorter episodes. I'm looking at the screen right now. I think I'm only going 12 minutes, so that's not too terrible. Might get a little bit shorter podcast episodes out there, be a little bit more concise, and just kind of hop on and talk about some stories that I think are interesting, maybe how they impact me, and what impacts they might have on the consumer. So the last thing I think I want to update for this week is talk briefly about Forever Notes. So there's a new workshop on the myforevernotes.com website that Matthias is holding. It's a paid workshop, I think. Great for those that are beginners and don't even know where to start with the Forever Notes system. I've been using Forever Notes still for about 6 months. I love, love, love the fact that it's a framework. I've taken some pieces and thrown them out the window already within the 6 months and just kind of quit using them altogether, mainly the journal and interestingly enough, hub pages. So I think I'm going to make a full video on that. My last Forever Notes video, when I explained, here's the setup that I'm using, here's how I'm using it, did pretty well. I think I'm going to do a 6-month update to kind of show everybody those minor updates, some of the gripes that I have with some of the things. But yeah, hub pages became a little bit too much to manage for me in my workflow since I'm gone to the smart folders and I'm using 3 tags: YouTube, newsletter, and podcast. It's really easier just for me to go to one of those 3 folders rather than try to go to a hub page first, then find the note that I need to link to, put it on the hub page. It's just a couple extra clicks. I think it's beneficial in certain aspects, certain areas, I think, lend themselves to hub pages better than others. Certain workflows will lend themselves better to hub pages than others. So stay tuned for that video. And that will have a lot more information on how I've been using the Forever Notes system. And lastly, I'll shout out my newsletter, The Digital Pulse. I also took a little bit of a hiatus on that this summer. Summer just doesn't feel like YouTube and podcasting to me. I like being outside, spending time with family, friends, going on trips, that sort of thing has just taken over my life in a good way. And as much as it pains me to not put out a video or a podcast every week, it's probably been good for me and my mental health and physical health overall. So check out those links in the description down below. I'll leave links to all the articles we talked about as well in the description, and get subscribed on whatever platform you found me on. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. If you're on Spotify, you should be able to leave comments and watch the video as well. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, you can leave me a 5-star review and let me know your feedback. I think that's it for this time. Thanks for listening to For Perspective, and we'll catch you in the next one. Later.